How's it going, folks? Can you guys hear me okay? All right, welcome back. Haven't seen you in a while. I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving break. I know I had a good break. All right, folks, so let's get started. It is 12:01. And before we get started, I just sent you guys not that long ago an email. And that email talks about the course evaluation and extra credits. Okay? How does that work? I need to have 80% participation in the course evaluation. And if I get to that point, all of you will get 10 points added to your grade, 10 extra points. And I know a lot of you could use those 10 extra points. And but to do that, you need to do the course evaluation. I'm sure that you have done this before if you have been within the UH system. Every end of the semester, you have a chance to do a course evaluation. The course evaluation are anonymous. I don't know who complete the course evaluation. In fact, I'm not going to see the evaluation until the spring semester next year. So it is completely anonymous and will literally take 5 minutes of your time. Okay? So I'm giving you 10 points for 5 minutes of your time. But if I don't get 80% participation, nobody gets those 10 extra points. All right? It is either all or nothing. It's like the action potential, all or nothing. So we will finish early today, probably. We only covering one lab today. And right after the lab, as soon as you're done, jump on the course evaluation site. I sent you an email with a link for the course evaluation. Go ahead and take the evaluation and get it done with so that we can get close for that 10 points added to your grade. How does that sound? Good? All right, so make sure you do the evaluation. I will be bugging you if I don't get 80%. I'm going to be bugging you every week until the 12 in order for you to do the evaluation. The evaluation is going to end on December 12th. Okay. All right, guys, so let me share my screen with you. And today we're going to be discussing about the digestive system. It is a system that we have talked about before in class in the lecture, so it's not going to be anything new to you if you're taking my lecture as well. And we're going to talk about the anatomy of the digestive system. We're going to take a look at what are the different organs, the different structures, what they do. And then I want to talk a little bit about nutrition and metabolism. Okay? So we do know that we can divide our digestive system into two major groups of organs. We have what we call the alimentary canal, also called the gastrointestinal tract, or simply the gut. And this alimentary canal, it is a 30 feet long tube that extends from our mouth all the way through the anus. Okay? So it's one long tube, and in this tube, the food and the water, whatever is that we swallow, will pass right through it. All right? Now, in addition to the structures of the alimentary canal, we also have what we call the assistant or the accessory organs of the digestive system. And those are organs in which the food doesn't pass through them like it passes through the organs of the alimentary canal. Nevertheless, those organs are still important for the digestion of the food that we eat. Okay? And the accessory or assistant organs include our teeth, the tongue, the salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, and the pancreas. And we're going to talk a little bit more about each one of them. All right? Now, before we get to talk about the organs of the alimentary canal and the organs of the assistant of the digestive system, let's talk about the space, the cavity within our body in which we're going to find most, not all, but most of the digestive organs. And this cavity is what we call the peritoneal cavity, also called the abdominal pelvic cavity. Okay? And just like other cavities in the body, the peritoneal cavity will be covered by a double layered membrane. One layer that is touching, that is covering the organs that we call the visceral layer or the visceral peritoneum, and one layer that is covering the walls of the cavity, which we call the parietal layer or the parietal peritoneum. All right? Now, there are a few organs, three of them to be precise, that they are found behind the parietal peritoneal membrane. So in order for us to be able to see those organs, we have to cut through the parietal peritoneal membrane and then expose those organs. And those organs, they are what we call the retroperitoneal organs. And they include the pancreas, the kidneys, and the beginning of the small intestine, which is a section called the duodenum. Okay? They are found behind the parietal peritoneal membrane. Now, just to walk you through all the different organs of the alimentary canal and also all the organs of the assistant to the digestive system, let's take a look at this slide right here. Okay, so the alimentary canal is going to start in our mouth, also what we call the oral cavity. And within the oral cavity, we're going to find our teeth, we're going to find our tongue, we're going to find the salivary glands, and they produce saliva that will initiate the process of chemical digestion of the food that we eat. Then, once we swallow the food, we create a bolus, and this bolus is going to go down into the esophagus, okay, which is a very muscular tube that is going to guide the food down into the stomach right here. From the stomach, now the food is going to be further digested, both mechanically and chemically. And then from the stomach, now the bolus is going to be called the chyme. And because the bolus now will mix with the acid and the enzymes of the stomach and become something that we call chyme. And then this chyme is going to enter the small intestine. And the small intestine is made of three different sections. We have the duodenum, the jejunum, and we have the ileum. What is the function of the small intestine? The function of the small intestine is for the absorption of the food that we eat, absorption of the nutrients. Okay? There's a couple of different accessory organs here that are very important for digestion, and those includes the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas right here. And each one of them play a specific role. We're going to talk more about them. From the small intestine, now the food is going to enter the large intestine. And the large intestine is divided into several different sections. We have the cecum, which is the beginning of the large intestine. We have the ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, and then we have sigmoid colon, rectum, and then the anus. Okay? All right, let's start with the mouth here. On the roof of our mouth, we have a hard and a soft palate. The hard palate is in the front and is made of bony tissue. And then the soft palate is all the way in the back of the oral cavity and is made of soft tissue. All the way in the back of the oral cavity, we're going to find this little dangling thing right here in the back. And that is what we call the uvula. And the uvula helps to guide the food down into the oral pharynx so that the food does not go up into the nasopharynx. And the uvula, they also vibrate when we speak. Okay, it helps with our speech as well. Then we have the tongue, and the tongue is held in the oral cavity by a little piece of membrane here called the lingual frenulum. So if you lift up your tongue, you can see that little mucous membrane called the lingual frenulum. And then inside of the oral cavity, we're going to find the three salivary glands, and they all produce the same type of saliva. Okay? And within saliva, we're going to find water, we're going to find lysozyme, and we're going to find salivary amylase. And amylases, they are enzymes that break down amylose into oligosaccharides. We're also going to find amylase produced by the pancreas. So the pancreas also produces an amylase, what is called a pancreatic amylase. Okay. Moving on, let's talk about a very important accessory organ of the digestive system, and that is the teeth. And this is something that will absolutely be in the next lab exam. So you need to be able to name teeth. You don't have to worry about naming the baby teeth. We're going to focus on naming adult teeth. The first thing, and I need everybody's attention here, the first thing that you need to understand about naming teeth, folks, is that we have a four of every single one of the teeth. Four of them. Okay? We have them on the right side and the left side, and we have them in the upper and the lower. So when you are naming a tooth, you need to describe if it is the right or left, upper and lower, before you give the name of the actual tooth. Okay? And we're going to practice here together so that we know exactly what we need to do for the exam. Now, again, the teeth are bilateral. And whatever teeth you have on the right side, you have on the left, and you have on the upper, and we have in the lower. The four teeth in the front, guys, these are what we call the central incisors or central incisors, whatever you pronounce it, okay? So again, we have four of them. We have the right upper, we have the left upper, we have the right lower, we have the left lower. Next to the central incisors, we're going to find the lateral incisors. Again, we have four of them. Then we have the canine, again, four canines. And then in the baby teeth, after the canine, we're going to find the molars. But in an adult, after the canine, we're going to find the two premolars. How do we name them? They are numbered, folks. The one close to the canine is number 1 premolar. The next one is the number 2 premolar. And again, each one of them will have a 4. Upper, lower, right, and left. Okay? Then after the second premolar, now we're going to find 3 molars. And again, they're also numbered. We have molar number 1, molar number 2, and molar number 3. And this molar number 3 here is also what we call our wisdom tooth. Okay? Now, let's do a little practice here together, and I want everybody's help right here. Erase this. All right, folks. Can anybody tell me what is the name of this tooth right here? Take a second to think about it.
Left top inside. No, yeah, left top incisor. Central incisor. Sorry.
Go again, Stephanie.
The left central incisor.
Go again. Something missing there. You had it. Left upper central incisor. Okay? Left upper central incisor. All right, let's do another one right here. Let me pick this one right here. Anybody jump in?
Lower left canine.
Left canine. Absolutely. This is the lower left canine. All right, let's do another one right here. This guy right here.
Upper right lateral incisor.
Upper right lateral incisor. Perfect. Absolutely. Okay. And this is how you guys need to answer on the exam. I need to have the full information. It's not just the central incisor. It's not just the canine. You need to tell me if it is the upper, lower, right, and left. Is that clear, folks? Any questions? All right. Moving on, let's talk about the pharynx now. And the pharynx also belongs to the digestive system. Now, we do know that we have three different sections of the pharynx, right? We have the nasopharynx, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx. Out of the three, only the oropharynx and the laryngopharynx belongs to the digestive system. Because unless you eat with your nose, food should not pass through the nasopharynx, okay? Next, we have the esophagus, and the esophagus is what's going to make the connection between the laryngopharynx, which is the last section of the pharynx, with the stomach down below. Okay? And the esophagus is made of four different layers. We have the innermost layer called the mucosa, and within the mucosa, we're going to find an epithelium layer all the way on the inside. And we have a laminal region, and we have one layer of smooth muscle. So together they make up the mucosa. Then on top of that, we have the submucosa, and the submucosa, we're going to find glands that helps to inject mucus inside of the lumen of the esophagus. On top of the submucosa, we're going to find the muscularis externa, which has not one, but two layers of muscle, a longitudinal layer and a circular layer. And those smooth muscles, guys, the three different smooth muscle, they will help with the pushing of the food down the pipe, a type of contraction that we call the peristaltic contraction, also called the peristalsis. Okay? And that is what is going to push the food down the pipe. And finally, on top of the muscularis externa, we're going to find a layer of serosa, keeping the whole esophagus together. Now, what is a heartburn? And I'm sure most of us experienced that last week during Thanksgiving dinner. But a heartburn is when we have the acid moving from the stomach up the esophagus, also what we call acid reflux. And as the acid moves up the esophagus, it is going to burn the epithelium layer of the esophagus right here, folks. And that will cause the pain that we feel right here in our chest, okay? If you have a heartburn once in a while, that is okay. The epithelium layer will grow back. But if you have recurrent heartburn, that is going to create chronic inflammation of the epithelium layer, and that can lead to esophageal cancer, which is a very aggressive type of cancer. Okay. Moving on now to the stomach, and the stomach does have different regions, and you guys need to know these for the exam, for the lab exam. I will ask you questions about this. And the stomach has two different sphincters, one at the entrance, one at the exit of the stomach, in which they control the passage of the food through the stomach. The sphincter at the entrance to the stomach is what we call the cardiac sphincter. Okay? And the main job of the cardiac sphincter is to prevent acid reflux. But sometimes it doesn't always work the way that it should. And some food items like garlic, for example, it causes the relaxation of the cardiac sphincter, leading to acid reflux. Right below the cardiac sphincter, we're going to find the entrance to the stomach, which is what we call the region called the cardia. On top of the stomach, we have the fundus. The main section of the stomach is called the body. And the body here of the stomach in this cartoon is being dissected so that we can take a look at the walls of the stomach. And we're going to find 3 layers of smooth muscle within the walls of the stomach. Okay? We're going to find a longitudinal, a circular, and an oblique layer. After the body, we have a triangular region called the pyloric antrum. And then at the exit of the stomach is another region called the pylorus. All right? And at the end of the stomach, we're going to find another sphincter called the pyloric sphincter. And this pyloric sphincter is very important to make sure that the food stays in the stomach long enough so that it is properly digested. Okay? The inner lining of the stomach is what we call the rugae of the stomach, or the rugae of mucosa. And the stomach has 2 different curvatures. We have a lesser curvature and we have a greater curvature. And you folks need to know, again, all of the section and structures of the stomach. Okay? Moving on, let's talk about the small intestine now. And again, the function of the small intestine is for the absorption of the nutrients from the food that we eat. Now, the small intestine is divided into 3 different sections. We have the duodenum, we have the jejunum, and we have the ileum. The duodenum is the entrance to the small intestine, is the beginning of the small intestine. Okay? And it's only 5% of the total small intestine. Now, nevertheless, it's still a very important section because we're going to have the injection of bile and we're going to have the injection of pancreatic juice inside of the duodenum in order to keep digesting the food that we eat. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. After the duodenum, we have the jejunum, which is about 40%, and then we have the ileum, which is about 55% of the small intestine. Okay? So the absorption of nutrients happens mostly right here in the jejunum and the ileum. Now let's take a closer look at some of the very important accessory organs of the digestive system. And here we have the big old liver. And the function of the liver within the context of the digestive system is that the liver synthesizes a fluid called bile. What is the function of bile? Why do we need a bile? Bile emulsifies fat. Bile breaks down fat. Okay? Now, the bile that is produced by the liver will be stored inside the gallbladder. So the function of the gallbladder is for the storage and concentration of the bile. Then when the bile is needed, because we ate a fatty food, now the bile is going to go through what we call a common bile duct. And then from the common bile duct, the bile is going to enter what we call the hepatopancreatic ampulla. And then from the hepatopancreatic ampulla, the bile will pass through the hepatopancreatic sphincter, okay? Injecting the bile into the duodenum. Now, the pancreas, in the context of the digestive system, it will produce different enzymes, guys. And those enzymes are going to be collected into a fluid that is called the pancreatic juice. And this pancreatic juice will flow through what we call the main pancreatic duct. And again, from the main pancreatic duct is going to enter the hepatopancreatic ampulla. And from the hepatopancreatic ampulla is going to pass through the hepatopancreatic sphincter, being injected into the duodenum. Okay? All right, moving on, let's talk about the large intestine now, which has several different sections and structures that you guys need to know for the exam. Now, before we get to talk about the large intestine, let's talk about a little sphincter right here. which is found between the small intestine, the end of the small intestine, which is the ileum right here, and the beginning of the large intestine, which is what we call the cecum. So the sphincter is called the ileocecal sphincter or the ileocecal valve because it is in between the ileum and the cecum. Okay? Attached to the cecum, we're going to find this finger-like projection right here, which is the appendix. And now that the food is going to enter the cecum, now it's going to flow through sections of the colon. And as it flows through the colon, it's going to form our fecal matter. So it's going to go from the cecum, it's going to go through the ascending colon. From the ascending colon, it's going to go through the transverse colon. Then it's going to go descending colon and then sigmoid colon. Okay? So you need to be specific and precise when answering questions about this in the quiz and the exam. If I'm pointing to a section of the large intestine, it's not enough just to say large intestine. You need to tell me if I'm pointing to the ascending, transverse, descending, sigmoid colon, rectum, or the anal canal. Be specific, be precise. All right? Now, for the anal canal, there are two sphincters that control the passage of the fecal matter. There is an external sphincter and an internal sphincter. The external sphincter is what is the one we can control. Okay, this one, it is voluntary muscle. We control it. The internal anal sphincter, however, is involuntary, guys. We don't control that one. Okay? We can see right here that in the corner of the large intestine, there are two different corners right here. These are what we call the colic flexure. Everybody pay attention here, please. On the right side, we have the right colic flexure. On the left side, we have the left colic flexure. Now, the right colic flexure is also called hepatic flexure, while the left colic flexure is also called splenic flexure. Why is it called hepatic and splenic? It's called hepatic because the liver sits right here, and it's called splenic because the spleen is going to sit on top of it. Very important. And I mentioned this, something very similar, when I talked about the heart valves, and 99% of you did this wrong on the lab exam. For the exam, you either say right colic flexure or you say hepatic flexure. There is no right hepatic flexure. Okay, because if you say right hepatic flexure, you imply there's a left hepatic flexure. There is no left hepatic flexure. The same apply for the left colic flexure. You either call it left colic flexure or you call it splenic flexure. There is no left splenic flexure. If you do that in the exam, I will take points from the question. And I don't know what happened on the other exam because I said exactly the same thing about the valves. And again, as I was grading it, 99% of you did that wrong. People are calling, right mitral valve. There is no such a thing, okay? We can see right here that the large intestine, the colon, is all segmented, folks. Each one of the segments is what we call a haustrum. So these have the haustrums. And then we can see there's a line of smooth muscle throughout the entire colon. And this line of smooth muscle is what we call the teniae coli. So what is the teniae coli? A line of smooth muscle that helps to push the food or the fecal matter through the colon. Okay? And finally, there is a membrane that is going to hold the large intestine in place. And that is what we call the mesentery. Any questions, folks? All right. So let's watch this little video here that shows the food as it goes through the entire alimentary canal. And then after that, we're going to discuss a little bit about nutrition and metabolism.
Here we'll show what happens when we digest food. As food enters the mouth, the teeth grind it down during chewing. This is called mastication. Salivary glands release saliva that moistens the food and helps to break down sugars. The tongue positions the food so it can be swallowed. The food
Stop right here. Right here, guys, we have the epiglottis, okay? So the epiglottis, remember, is going to come down every time you swallow to prevent food from going inside the larynx.
moves through the throat and into the esophagus. Food moves down the esophagus by peristalsis. These are wave-like contractions of the muscles in the digestive pathway that push the food along. Next, the food
Can anybody tell me what is the name of the sphincter at the entrance to the stomach? Talked about it not long ago.
The cardiac sphincter.
The cardiac sphincter, Randy, absolutely, okay? And this one, again, it controls, it prevents the acid or the contents of the stomach from moving up the esophagus. So we can see, we're going to see the sphincter opening and close right there.
enters the stomach, where it's showered in gastric juices and proteins are digested.
So now we have the chyme. So as the bolus enters the stomach and mixes with the acid and the enzymes, we have the chyme. And we can see all the mucosa, the rugae of the mucosa right here, which is the inner lining of the stomach.
Who then passes through into the small intestine.
Can anybody tell me what is the name of the sphincter at the exit of the stomach? We're looking at it right here.
Pyloric sphincter.
The pyloric sphincter, absolutely, okay? Right there between the stomach and the duodenum.
Here the food is showered with bile that digests fats and pancreatic juices.
By the way, we can see right here in the inner lining of the small intestine, so we are in the duodenum now, we can see all these little finger-like projections. These are the villi, okay? And the villi helps to increase the surface area of the small intestine, so to enhance nutrient absorption. The other thing I want to mention right here, can we see this little flow of bile and pancreatic juice? So this is coming from the hepatopancreatic ampulla and the hepatopancreatic sphincter, injecting bile, injecting pancreatic juice into the duodenum.
Contain enzymes to digest carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. The walls of the small intestine also release enzymes. The small intestine is over 5 meters long, and the food moves along by peristalsis, as in the esophagus. After the food leaves the small intestine, almost all the nutrients have been absorbed. Next, the food moves into the large intestine.
What is the name of the sphincter, the valve between the ileum and the cecum? Anybody?
The ileocecal.
The ileocecal sphincter or the ileocecal valve, okay?
The main role of the large intestine is to absorb water, nutrients, and salts, and convert waste products into a more solid form that can be excreted from the body as feces. The colon ends in the rectum and anal canal. By this time, water has been absorbed and the feces are ready to be expelled from the body through the anus.
Any questions, folks? All right, now a little bit about nutrition here. We all know that we need to eat a balanced meal, and that means we need to eat grains and vegetables and fruits, milk, proteins, etc. And here we have a little table just for you to visualize and understand what those vitamins and minerals are, what they're good for, what happens when we don't have enough of them, how much you should be taking, and how do you get them in your diet, okay? From what food items you're going to be able to get those vitamins and minerals. And I really hope, guys, that now by the end of the semester, you guys have a little bit of better idea what is the role of vitamins in our body. Because we know that vitamins are good for us since we are little kids, right? We have this information being shoved into our heads. Vitamins are good. Make sure you eat to get your vitamins, take your vitamins. But nobody ever told us why we need to take our vitamins. Why do we need them? So hopefully right now you understand a little bit more that the vitamins are essential for the functions of different parts of our body. For example, we need vitamin A for our eyesight to prevent night blindness. We need vitamin B9 and B12 for the development of red blood cells. We need vitamin D for the absorption of calcium. We need vitamin K for the clotting of our blood. So every vitamin has a specific function, right? Now, should we be taking vitamin supplementation? I do believe we should, especially because, oftentimes we're not getting all of the vitamins and minerals that we require from our diet. You might be the exception, and that is great. If you eat really well, a really balanced meal, then you don't need vitamin supplementation, okay? But I do think it is important, and especially important for mothers that are expecting and also for the elderly. Now, I mentioned this before in the lecture. Not all vitamin supplements are created the same. You need to check, the most important thing to check is to make sure that the vitamin supplement is going to be absorbed by your small intestine. Because if those vitamins are not being absorbed, you are literally flushing your money down the toilet. Because it simply is going to pass through the alimentary canal intact. Okay? Now, if you need to do your little research and make sure that that has been tested for absorption. And at several reputable, respectful pharmaceutical companies that produces vitamin supplements, they do test it for absorption. Now, too much of a vitamin is not good for us. It's a condition called hypervitaminosis. And that can be very detrimental, especially for the elderly. Again, an example of that is an overintake of vitamin A. Overconsumption of vitamin A will lead to increasing the chances of developing osteoporosis because it does affect the process of breakdown of our bones. Okay. All right, folks, this is all that I want to mention about nutrition. What are we doing today? Today, we only have one in-lab activity, which is an Edpuzzle video. And the video is going to walk you through a model of the human body. Remember, I will use pictures of the models for the exam. And then after you're done with the video, you're going to jump on Lamaku, take the quiz, and then one more thing for you to do. You're going to do the course evaluation, all right? Jump on that link, take the course evaluation, be done with it, so you can get those 10 extra points. All right? Any questions, folks? All right, let's get started.